Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello and welcome to Game Over Vancouver. I'm your host for tonight, Samantha. You can find me on Twitter at SamanthaCP, and I am joined by one of my all-time favorite people in hockey, Marisa Ingemi. How are you doing, Marisa?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for asking me to come on this.
I'm so happy you're on. I know over the last few days, I've had so many people reach out and be like, I'm so excited that you're going to have Marisa on. So
that's so nice and like touching and great ego boost. So thank you, people.
You deserve it.
Oh my God, thank you.
We are going to talk about the Canucks Sharks game. Canucks blow the Sharks out. I wouldn't call it a good game. Canucks win 7-2 over the San Jose Sharks. Not a lot to write home about, in my opinion. If you watched the game, I think probably the highlight of the game for Canucks fans was actually, and I don't know that it's a highlight so much as it's a low light, was the announcement that John Garrett is retiring next season. That was really, I think, the storyline of the game from Canucks fans' viewpoint. 7 goals from 7 different players, and the Sharks are not good. What was the highlight of the game for you?
I thought it was funny when the Sharks scored a shorthanded goal and then the Canucks scored a minute later, because I was like, oh my God, what if like this becomes interesting and I have things to talk about? And then they were like, never mind, like we're not going to help you out with that at all. I also just enjoy when that happens. I forget like the exact terminology, like back like when you score a goal like right after a team gives one up. But that's something I always enjoy in hockey, when they just like take the momentum away. Like I think that's one of the funniest things that can happen watching a game. So I was like, great, I got my entertainment value here, which is hard to get during a Sharks game or during a game with 2 teams not really going to the playoffs. The Sharks have lost, I think, 13 out of 14 games. So it's really hard to find things out of their side of things where you're like, I got enjoyment out of that.
That's totally fair. Before we jump back into this, I need to shout out our sponsor. It's March Mania at Sports Interaction, NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, and so much more. It's bananas. Play Piñata Picks and Minute Madness, exclusive games with insane odds you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario, use the QR code you see at the bottom of the screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 18 plus, please play responsibly. Okay, I think that ad read might have been more exciting than the game for me.
It was bananas. I like that.
It was bananas. So 7 goals for the Canucks, I think, on 21 shots. Fun fact for everyone involved: 14 divided by 21 gives you 0.66666666 repeating. I'm not rounding it up. So James Reimer's save percentage tonight was the sign of Satan.
Oh wow, how intriguing.
Yeah, just
for no
just
reason
thought I'd
whatsoever.
throw that one out there. Yeah, it's great. I love that for him.
I love that for all of us.
Yeah. In this race to the bottom, the Canucks, I think, for all of our watchers who are here with us, I think everyone knows I was like a hardcore team tankist, and we got to the halfway mark of the season, and I think even the most resistant, like pro winning people, were like, yeah, it's time to tank, and it's time to tank hard for Bedard. Give the Sharks a run for their money. And the Canucks now just can't stop winning. And they are I think after last game, they were 5 points away from playing themselves out of the top 10 in the draft, and 5 points away from a 0% chance at Connor Bedard.
Well, what's like the vibe for you guys? Because here, like, I went to the Sharks game this weekend and there was like a Connor Bedard chant, and I'm like, I guess that's not that surprising because they don't win games anymore. But in Canucks land, like, has that been the mission all year? Like, is it Bedard time? Is that where you guys are at?
So I don't actually know what the vibe is. The vibe is kind of confusing right now. I think from the start of the season until now, from the start of the season, probably until maybe a few weeks after Bruce Boudreau was fired, the vibes were bad, like very, very bad. I see Tony Smolak, who's a loyal viewer in the chat, and Tony is one of the most anti-tank people. And by like several weeks ago, he had accepted that tanking was probably going to be a good solution. And I feel like it took a while. It wasn't the vibe all season, but it got like by the midway mark of the season, people were like, yeah, we could get on board with this. Like if you don't get Bedard, you can get Fantilli. Like there's a lot of great players out there.
Mm-hmm.
Deepest draft since like 2015. Great. And then they just started winning. Like I can't even tell you how many games they won in the last bit, but they are
I was
on a
looking at
roll.
it because I saw on Twitter people are like, "Oh no, we're out of the Bedard race," and I'm like, "Are the Canucks winning games now?" And I was like, "Oh my god, it's like the anti-Sharks. It's wild."
They had a 5-game win streak, annihilated the Sharks tonight. They actually look relatively good. I think the problem is that Kaya, my one of my hosts, says Canucks are too good to tank, and I think that's the actual truth. Is the problem, and what I've said along is they were better than what they were to start the season and for most of the season, and they're good, but they're just not good enough.
They set expectations too low for themselves to maintain.
Yeah,
like the opposite of No, it's interesting because going into this year with the Sharks, they fired their GM, their coach, they fired their coach, new GM comes in. And kind of like their whole messaging was, oh, we're not like rebuilding necessarily, like let's see how this year goes. But they trade Brent Burns and they're like, it's not a rebuild, like don't say that. And now it's like very clearly like, well, what if this wasn't a rebuild, what is it? Like they were like, oh, we're not necessarily like tanking or whatever, like we're not like looking for the lottery pick, but like that's the direction they do have to go in, because look at what they have. Like that's not a team that's going to be ready to compete anytime soon with anything that they have. So it's I just thought of like Bedard for bust, I guess, like that Bedard or bust.
I guess Bedard or
like,
bust. I like that.
I don't know if people are using that. They probably are. But
I haven't seen that.
It's like good alliteration. We can go with that.
Producer Rob also has a good one. Bestie said bye to Bedard.
I like it.
Good headline. I like it. I mean, I don't like the concept of it, but I like the phrase.
It's like sad, but also like we love alliteration.
Yeah. If you're just joining us, the Canucks win yet another game, 7-2 over the San Jose Sharks. Tony Smolak, Reimer has the mark of the beast. That's correct. James Reimer gives up 7 goals on 21 shots. All right. We're going to move into, because there's only so many ways you can dissect that game. We're going to move into something I've been really looking forward to. The Sharks had their Pride Night recently, and Marisa wrote a fantastic piece featuring queer fans in the sport. And I would love it if you could walk us through that piece and the fans you introduced to all of us in that article, and kind of how that came about and what your goal was there. Yeah,
so I didn't really know I was going to go to Pride Night till the day before, because I had thought about it, but then I've been covering Stanford women's basketball and I didn't know their schedule. So I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make it. And then the day before, I'm like, I can pull it off. Let's go try. And then the Reaver stuff happened, and I was like, I really just don't want to keep writing about this. And I feel like everyone else is going to. And one thing that I think a lot of the NHL Pride Night coverage has lacked generally is like any queer perspective whatsoever. And I'm like, okay, I guess like just by me writing that, it could be like a little bit different. But at the same time, like I haven't really been around the Sharks as much as other NHL teams that I've covered. So I was like, how do I like even insert myself into that? It doesn't seem right. And I'm like, okay, so a lot of queer fans follow me. What do people want from their coverage? So I kind of just wanted to like meet up with fans and kind of ask like, how would you like to see this covered? And then like it became really apparent, like I think the story is more like the perseverance that is there of like, we're going to go to Pride Night anyways. Like, okay, the Reamer stuff happened. We already got our tickets or whatever. Like, we're going to go get to see the jerseys anyways. Like, we still win. And I just thought that perspective was kind of lacking in mainstream coverage. And like I'm so lucky that I get to write for a newspaper that a lot of people read, and that I have editors and people who like are willing to hear ideas like that. And I could just tell them like, hey, if I go with this approach, is that cool? And they're like, yeah, we totally back that. I know a lot of writers, especially at mainstream publications, might not get that type of opportunity where they can do something they're really passionate about like that. But it was like the Sharks were like actually super helpful with it too. Like they got me in touch with the artists, like they got me in touch with
Wow.
people from the San Jose Earthquakes, who are the queer hockey team, or San Francisco Earthquakes to San Jose Earthquakes are the soccer team. Um, and it was like went out of their way to be helpful. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And what was interesting to me talking to fans too is kind of like the general vibe that they were like, okay, even if this is how Reamer feels, the rest of the organization has like really done a good job of still like making them feel welcomed and everything like that. And I was like, that's interesting, because I feel like a lot of people might not get that perspective. So I feel really grateful people were trusting and willing to talk, because I know like talking to reporters is really scary, especially like as queer people, and you have different names and different things like that. Papers a lot of the time don't respect. So I was just like really grateful that people were willing to kind of put themselves out there and talk to me.
We have Over the Glass Hockey in the chat. They say, thanks for highlighting queer voices at the Sharks tank, Marissa. And
Oh, they were so great.
that was a really common sentiment I saw on social media, was how appreciative queer fans were for you telling their stories. And I think, to your point, that, I think you're grateful for them sharing their stories with you. I think it also speaks to your reputation and the space you've created with your work for them. So I think you should take credit for that too.
Well, I appreciate that so much. I mean, like, I feel just kind of lucky. Like, I live on hockey Twitter, even though I'm like not in hockey as much as I used to be. So I can just like tap into those resources, and those readers and followers kind of have followed me from 3 different cities to here, and now doing different sports, and they're still like willing to interact. Like, that's just like, it really touches me a lot.
That's something I really hope that other, I don't want to say sports media, I think other hockey media could really stand to learn from reading your work and watching your interactions with your readers, is that, like you said, so much of mainstream hockey media just talks about the same stories, and it's always the same angle, and it's like 15 different beat writers tweeting the same quote 15 different ways. And what I appreciated so much about the story, and what I would love to see from other sports media, is thinking about the other voices and other stories that they can tell, um, and the different angles, because we can do all these pride nights, we can have all these exercises about like who's not supportive and whatever, but I think until we shift the conversation to talk about the ways in which we are making progress and making it inclusive and making inroads, we're just going to keep focusing on kind of the resistance,
Mhm.
and we don't get to see the positive stories and the joy that we can all get from this sport.
Mhm.
And I think
And
that's
like,
really.
it can be hard, like, when you're a day-to-day beat writer, like, you're in the locker room every day, you have your daily stuff you have to do, you're checking a lot of boxes when you're on a daily beat all the time, and you're talking to certain people, and your availabilities are at this time or that time. It can be really hard to kind of do that. So, like, I don't know if when I was on a daily beat, and depending on the papers I was at as well, but just with the time I had, I don't know if it would have been possible to do something as in depth as I was like kind of having that bird's eye view perspective of like, okay, this is going on. I kind of have these resources. I don't have to worry about this other stuff. So I'm also just like recognizing now, like, not everyone's able to do stuff like that, but I would like to see definitely like just different voices and stuff, because something I didn't really even think of is how many fans felt like grateful that like so many players were representing them. And like I talked to some people who were like, okay, yeah, Reamer said no, but there's 22 guys who were like, yeah, you're welcome here. And I was like, like, I'm not sure I've seen many other reporters talk about that perspective, and I don't know if I would have even thought about that, because I'm a queer person, but I'm not like a fan going to this stuff. I don't think about it the same way. I'm like, these are just some dudes I have to talk to and get on with my life. Like, but like that representation, the way that still hit, I was like, that's a perspective that I think we have to hit on a little bit.
Yeah, I know you said the Sharks went out of their way to be helpful, which I think is great. I think they also did a good job throughout the evening of tweeting educational facts, which is
Mhm.
something I think a lot of other teams don't necessarily do a good job of, is actually incorporating something proactive and helpful to the community in their Pride nights. Um, can you talk a bit about um, from your perspective, how the Sharks did with respect to the rest of the night, and the ways that they showed allyship and what other teams can learn from that?
Yeah, so I think they did kind of like the best they could do given the circumstances compared to just like canceling wearing the jerseys or whatever, the way we've seen some other teams do it. They protected their player on social media. Like we kind of have to expect they're going to do that. That's just the nature of like they're not going to throw their guy under the bus. I think they did a good job of still like not making it about him though, where I think we've seen like with the Wild, whoever it was who didn't want to wear it and was uncomfortable, they just scrapped it. And I think there was, I forget who it was on the Wild who was like, "Oh, I would have liked to wear the jersey." I think it was a story from Sean Gentili that was like, he talked to Batman about like, well, what if a guy does want to wear the jersey? And then it's like, oh, well, it has to be best for the locker room. And it's like, okay, well, why is it one way or not the other? But you look at like the Flyers, the way Provorov was really centered in that conversation. And I think the Sharks did a good job of like, as best as they could, not centering Reamer. And one thing I was asking everyone I was speaking to was like, what does meaningful allyship actually look like from like an NHL team, a professional sports team or league? Like that's a major institution of power. So like what does real allyship actually look like compared to just like rainbow capitalism, which I think we're all happy to see the jerseys and everything, but like what is the meaning behind that as well? And every fan there was like kind of like what the Sharks are already doing, and they listed off the things that was happening between the tweets, having a queer designer for the jerseys, continuing on the Pride night at all, which like is wild to say. Like I feel like a year ago we'd be like, what do you mean these teams are canceling Pride night? But or canceling wearing the jerseys, but like it's almost like an act of resistance to even keep it at all at this point. In the Bay Area, I don't think it would have flown if they didn't do that. I think it would have been a problem compared to some other places, but I think like given the circumstances, really the Sharks did the best they could do. Like I don't look at them and I'm like, well, they messed up in these areas. I think they did what they could.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was actually really pleasantly surprised to see tonight the Florida Panthers go ahead with wearing the jerseys in Florida, given everything happening in the
That
state.
one was worrying me, and I was like, okay,
Yeah,
we're
yeah, and not only did they do it, I thought the Pride jerseys they had designed by a queer artist were sick. Like,
mhm.
and I have to say, I loved the big trans shark as well. Like,
That
super
shark was
super
so
fan.
cool. Like I want like a stuffed animal shark, like the IKEA one, like in that those colors.
Yeah, that would be amazing. That's something I also want to get into. I only realized as a result of all of these conversations. So the Canucks have always historically sold their Pride jerseys in their team store. And I had just kind of assumed that was something that was common across the league. And I didn't realize until recently that a lot of teams don't sell their Pride jerseys.
Yeah, I don't know like what licensing or rights or commissions have to go into it, but like I've definitely seen like so many Rainbow Bruins hats growing up, or just like around Boston and stuff. And then even in Seattle, I wasn't even there long enough to see their Pride night, and I saw them having their little Pride caps and everything. So like they're fine making their money off of it. I've had so many people ask me about the Sharks jerseys, and I don't know. I haven't seen anything. I feel like if they were going to sell them, they probably would have made a push by now, but I haven't seen anything. But I don't know like what licensing has to go into it. Good on the Canucks though for selling the real ones. Like I'm sure a lot of people would want to buy them. Like you would here at least. I know a lot of people do.
Yeah, I know it's affectionately called the Gorka, the gay orca
That's
from
so
last year,
cute.
designed by Mio, was stunning. Like the details on it were amazing. And I know a ton of people bought that merch. And it's just it would be great to see teams kind of put their money where their mouth is and sell this
Mhm.
merchandise and like donate the proceeds to queer organizations.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people would buy the Sharks one. Like that's the number one response I've been getting. It's like, where do I buy one? And I'm like, I wish I could tell you.
like a stuffed shark would be incredible. Like I'm not a Sharks fan. I would buy it.
It would be so. It looks just like the IKEA shark. You just like put the colors on, and there you have it. Like they could. They have so many little shark stuffed animals. They could do it.
Yeah. Laura in the chat says the Sharks are selling the design as a t-shirt. So
I mean, at least they're doing that. That
yeah,
rocks. Like
if you're listening and you want the big trans shark as a shirt, go buy it.
it's very cool. Like I got to like hold the jersey in person and touch it. I'm like, this is really dope.
That's awesome. And you spoke to the designer as well.
Yeah, Hui Chow, she was incredible. She had done like a mural. My cat's in the picture now. I'm sorry. Or you're welcome, depending
Yeah,
on
you're
your cat
welcome.
perspective. I've had both. Um, she was so cool. She had done like murals before for the San Jose Earthquakes, the soccer team. But she had never designed a jersey in her life. And she was picked out of like 4 people, and you could just see like the heart and soul she put into that jersey and how much it meant to her. And I think it really showed just like how cool the design came out. Like she went over every single little detail of like putting the word love on the hockey sticks, because she was like, I wanted everyone to, I wanted even a child to understand that this is a nice, positive, good thing. This is about love. And I thought it was really nice the amount of detail she put in.
Yeah, they were really, really stunning. I think in general, I find the pride jerseys for any team are usually like the best jersey of the season.
Yeah, they really are, because you get all the colors. Like
Yeah.
so many hockey teams are just like red. Like I want to see some purple in there. I want to see like some orange where it doesn't belong, you know?
Yeah, exactly. All right. If you're just joining us, I am Samantha at Samantha CP _ on Twitter. I had to think about what my handle was for a second. And I am with Marisa Ingemi at Marisa. There's an underscore in yours as well,
Yes,
isn't there?
there
Yes.
is.
At Marisa _ Ingemi. Really having trouble with the underscores tonight. Make sure you go follow Marisa if you don't already. Follow at SDPN Sports. Canucks beat the San Jose Sharks 7-2 tonight. Marisa tweeted something yesterday about covering sports using Taylor Swift lyrics. I took one look at that and was like, that is 100% what we're doing tomorrow. And so we have now reached the Taylor Swift portion of the night.
That's my favorite portion of any night.
It shouldn't be a portion of a night. It should be like everything. Every
You
night.
know, ever since like the Eras tour has started, I've gone like just full back into Swiftie mode. Like I got my tickets.
You got
finally.
tickets, didn't you?
Yeah, I waited a while. I literally like redacted how I got the money for it. But my friend and I were like, okay, we can do this now finally. And we did it, and we got them, and there's no looking back. They're not good seats, but they're seats, and that's all that matters. Yeah.
That's
We have our
really
outfits
awesome.
we picked out our eras. I'm Reputation always, so.
I love it. I love it. Okay. The goal in this segment is to talk about this hockey season using Taylor Swift lyrics.
So I've got like some really good ones on Twitter, because I needed to ask the Swifties. My favorite one was how the first answer I got was Shade never made anybody less gay. And I'm like, this is like the moment. Like, yes, like our overarching narrative tonight, like nailed it.
Yeah.
I love the one, this is why we can't have nice things. I love like the whole theme is just like everything's bad. Because me too. Swear to be over dramatic. Yes. Always. I think that was Robert actually. Yeah. There are some good ones. I just was like the entire "You Need to Calm Down" song. Like just all the lyrics felt like a fit to me. And then I was like trying to go like team specific, like which teams are in their Reputation era right now, because I feel like that's important.
Oh, that's a really good question.
I think like the Bruins might be, I guess, because everyone was like, oh, they're not going to do anything. Marchand's hurt, Bergeron's hurt. And then they came back and they're just like scary now.
I actually can't believe how good they are. I find it very upsetting.
It's, as someone who used to cover them and now I don't, I'm just like, okay. Like, I mean, I covered a game 7 of the Cup final. I cannot complain, but I'm like, you really waited? Like, what are we doing?
Who else would you say is in the reputation era? I think definitely the Bruins.
I want to say the Kraken are too, but now I'm just going off teams that I know. But
Just
like,
all the teams that Marissa has covered are in
yeah,
their
like so
reputation
next
era.
up the Sharks like are just gonna go off next year. But I mean, like actually, literally, like they were really bad last year, and now like playoff team, like their reputation's actually better.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. What era would you say the Canucks are in? I will also take suggestions from the chat.
Oh, okay. They have kind of like red vibes to me a little bit because there's like this longing there, but like they're not quite there yet.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I like
Red to
that.
me is such a longing album. A lot of yearning.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I want to disagree because I actually really like red.
I
And I
love
don't
red.
like where the Canucks are right now.
Red's like my fourth favorite. Like we love red.
Okay, what's your
Um,
definitive ranking?
oh, I'm a Reputation girly, and I always have been. Even when it wasn't popular to be, I was like a closet Reputation girl. Everyone's like, "Oh, these songs are bad." I'm like, okay. And then Lover has really like that's my alter ego now. Like I was deciding between a Reputation or a Lover fit. And then Folklore, I think, is just excellent. Like that's
Yeah.
artistry.
Yeah.
Like I'm jealous as a writer that she could pull that off.
I think that's I love folklore.
Folklore's so good. There when Folklore came out, I did a Twitter thread of every NHL team as folklore lyrics.
Oh, I remember
Um,
that.
it's one of my favorite Twitter threads of all time. And I don't remember like what all of them were, and a lot of them don't apply anymore, obviously. But my favorite one was something of like the Flyers. I peaked at 7 because they won the Stanley Cup in their 7th year, or they went to it their 7th year, and then they haven't won one since. I was like, that one was
That's actually
perfect.
incredible. That's actually perfect. Producer Rob says Canucks want to go back to December, so they're in the speak now era.
I love that. Like that's so specific and good. I like it. I'm not really a Speak Now girly. I know like 3 songs on that one.
It's so hard to actually keep track of which is which because she has so many songs.
So it's in her tour right now. She's doing like 2 surprise songs a night, and somebody on TikTok was like keeping a spreadsheet and figured out if she does 2 of them that are different every single show, she'll do like 66% of her discography on this tour. And that's wild for how much stuff she has. Like that is
That's
just
actually crazy.
wacky.
Um,
Impressive.
I'm trying to think of a specific lyric but I actually just can't find the song I was thinking of anymore.
For the Canucks.
Yeah, I had it and it's gone because that's
I
actually how many songs she has.
I feel like anytime you're like feeling sad about a team, you can just be like all too well.
Yeah. But
Like I
which
remember
team
all too well when the Canucks were good, you know. I remember that cup final.
do you think is all too well the 10-minute version?
Oh wow. I could say the Sharks just because like 2019 they were what like a game away from going to the cup final. And now like how far away are they from getting to that point again? I'm sure fans here feel betrayed and sad. I know they do because they're in my emails. A lot of betrayal feelings. So I could say the Sharks. Trying to think of a less predictable answer. Um, I don't know. Maybe Chicago potentially because they're also bad and didn't used to be. But I don't want to give them that one because I like that song a lot.
I know. I think okay, so I have for all too well the 10-minute version. It makes me think of the Oilers.
Okay, I can see that. I get that vibe.
It makes me think of the Oilers because it's like this long saga where like they're like she's like so hopeful in the beginning and then it's just this
Mhm.
like gradual letdown that she's still thinking about 10 years later, and that's how I feel about like the Oilers run of first overall draft picks.
And like if you want to do like a deep cut, like they stay my age or whatever, and they keep getting these young draft picks that then
Yes.
don't work out. I like that. That's a great comp.
Yeah, that's my pick for all too well. Um if you could pick any song. I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I totally lost track.
To see an Eras tour.
Yeah.
I love the playlist. I don't have any complaints. I do really want to see Getaway Car really bad though.
Oh, Getaway Car would be really good.
Yeah, that's the one where I'm like, that's like, I've seen people complaining about a playlist and I'm like, how are you upset that she's giving us this much? She's giving us 44 songs. Like, tolerate it's on the playlist, like, or set list. Like, why are we complaining? But I'd love to see Getaway Car because I'm just like, I just love that song. I don't know why. It hypes me up. It's on all my hype playlists.
That's amazing. Okay. If that's your favorite song, which team would be Getaway Car this season?
Oh God. That's such a good question. Like the vibe of it is kind of like stealing something. So like it's kind of like who is surprising? Who is, I mean, it could go like the Coyotes are stealing people's hearts kind of because they're kind of fun and weird. Because Mullet Arena Center, whatever it's called, the Mullet something, people are into that more than I think anyone expected. Like I care about the Coyotes suddenly. I love watching a game with a college logo on it for some reason. Trying to come up with a better answer. Who's like been super surprising?
I think Getaway Car might be the LA Kings.
Okay, I can go with that. I'm trying to think, like, I don't feel like that many like teams have super shocked me this year.
Yeah.
Other than like the Bruins being as good as they are, but I'm not gonna keep using them just because I watch them. And they're like a playoff team, so they're not that surprising. But I'm trying to think like who has been like stunning. And again, like the Kraken, but like I'm not gonna keep using them either. But like, yeah, I can see the Kings. I can go with that.
Luna Dog in the chat, who I'm pretty sure is Vanessa, says, "Don't blame me," says Jim Rutherford for the Canucks cap issues.
That's a great one.
Followed up with OEL is literally Getaway Car.
I love this. I love it. I'm a huge fan of that. Don't blame me, also a banger.
They're all bangers. Okay. Last question of the night. And I will once again, if you're in the chat and you have suggestions, which Taylor Swift song are the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Oh God, I'm trying to think like what I said about them before. I kind of like want to search my Twitter now and see what I said about them previously. Because I remember thinking it was funny, whatever I said before.
Rob,
yes.
I love it.
Hi, people can hear me now. Your thread originally had Toronto as a folklore lyric. 50 years is a long time.
I love that. Okay, I knew it was funny. Okay, thank you for doing that because I don't know how to search for my old tweets, so I appreciate that.
That's I can't top that. That's actually perfect.
That is a long time. Like 50 years. I don't know how long that is.
No, not as long as 67. I don't know. That's all I've got for you.
I love I need to like go do a whole like eras thread at some point.
You should definitely do that.
That's a summer activity.
You should come on the broadcast and we'll do like a full eras episode.
Oh my gosh, literally always. I wear my broadcast long sleeve all the time here and nobody knows, like they're like, what is that? I'm like, it's this great hockey podcast.
That makes me so happy.
Yes.
Okay. We have Luna Dog says Leafs are champagne problems. Also another great suggestion.
I love that because their problem is they don't get any champagne because they don't win.
Okay. Enough with the Leafs slander. Love getting that in. Canucks win 7-2 tonight. I've been joined by the incredible Marisa Ingemi. Please go read her work. Go follow her on Twitter at Marisa_Ingemi. Follow at SCPN Sports. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we will see you next game.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook. Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.